crayons and a toy. It broke his little heart when he found Santa hadn't come.
A surreal moment from Anderson Cooper's interview with Dr. Conrad Murray when the man convicted of involuntary manslaughter in Michael Jackson's death burst into song on live television last night. Meanwhile, jury selection continues in Catherine Jackson's lawsuit against AEG, seeking $40 billion. Now, Conrad Murray's attorney, Valerie Wass, is here to go head-to-head with Michael Jackson's attorney, Tom Mesereau. Welcome to you, Valerie Wass. You weren't happy watching Tom and I discussing this last night. Why not?
Well, I felt that he was viewed in a wrong manner. I feel very strongly about Dr. Murray and that he's a compassionate man, and I believe that he's an innocent man. I believe he was wrongly convicted, and I don't know if Tom really knows the facts of the case and has read the record and all the evidence, such as I have done for over the last year.
I haven't read the record, but I watched a lot of the trial, and every single physician in this courtroom, including Murray's own expert, thought that having propofol in the home and administering it the way he did was a gross deviation from the medical standard of care. Nobody justified having propofol in the house. Nobody justified administering it the way he apparently did. He didn't have the equipment. He didn't have personnel assisting him. He didn't have backup equipment. He didn't have the medications you need if something goes wrong. He didn't have the power supply if something goes wrong. Everything he did, in my opinion, was a disgrace, and I think he caused the death of Michael Jackson.
Valerie?
Well, even if he deviated from the standard of care, he didn't cause the death of Michael Jackson, because on the night Michael Jackson died, he was not on a propofol drip, and that's what nobody understands. And using propofol in a home is not illegal. It's not illegal. It's an off-label use. An off-label use is...
Did you read the toxicology?
Absolutely.
The toxicology examined 8 specimens from his body: the stomach, the liver, the heart, the veins, the femoral artery. He had propofol in every single of the 8 specimens.
That's correct. And the toxicology results are... He was loaded from propofol from a 25-milligram bolus injection that Michael Jackson self-administered shortly before he died. It matches up with all the toxicology findings.
The amount of propofol grossly exceeded the 25 that Dr. Murray said he administered, first of all.
That's right, because Jackson administered another 25-milligram dose. And when it's administered rapidly, that's what caused cardiac arrest, and it comports with the toxicology results.
Well, the jury came back in 8 hours finding that Michael Jackson did not self-administer propofol, that your client was grossly negligent and caused his death. Now, listen, I don't think he intentionally did this. He wasn't charged with premeditated murder. He was charged with gross negligence, involuntary manslaughter, and every single expert that testified admitted he had committed gross negligence in a variety of ways. One expert said there were 17 acts of gross negligence. Propofol in the home, administering it the way he did.
That's right, but if he was not on a propofol drip on that night, how could he be there was no cause.
Your client told the police.
No, the 2 months that Dr. Murray administered propofol to Michael Jackson on a drip, Michael Jackson was fine. It was after he stopped administering the propofol drips that he died.
Well, that's your argument. I understand that, and I think you're doing a commendable job defending him. The problem is the jury rejected it in 8 hours, and every single medical expert rejected it as well.
I actually spoke to one of the jurors last summer and found it really interesting that they adopted this slit saline bag theory. It was a ludicrous theory that probably came about because the prosecutor popped the tab on the Exhibit 30 bottle and they were forced to find another way to hang the bag. It was an absurd method. No, even the prosecution's expert had never heard of such an absurd method of hanging a drip.
Well, your client ordered propofol, took it into his home. I think he had it delivered to his girlfriend's apartment, took gallons into his home, and that alone was a gross deviation from acceptable medical standards.
That's right, but it's not a causative factor. That's the difference.
It's not a causative factor? Then what caused his death? Every single specimen was loaded with propofol. It was a propofol-induced death. That was the cause of death, and nobody really disputed that. The argument was, where did the propofol come from? And Murray should not have brought it in the home. It doesn't belong in the home.
Michael Jackson had his own stash of propofol when Dr. Murray first started treating Michael Jackson. There's evidence that he was on propofol for years
let me jump in. It's been fascinating to watch you both go at it. He's obviously already been tried and is in jail as a result. Let's move to what this new trial is basically going to come down to, which involves a responsibility aspect of who was really employing Conrad Murray. And I'll remind you of an email from the AEG live co-CEO Paul Gongware, which has emerged. We said we want to remind Murray that it is AEG, not MJ, Michael Jackson, who is paying his salary. We want to remind him what is expected of him. Now, Valerie Wass, what did that email mean? What was expected of Conrad Murray? And is it true that it was AEG paying Conrad Murray directly, not Michael Jackson?
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that Conrad Murray never received a dime for caring for Michael Jackson. He took care of him for 2 months and was not paid a dime. The contract was supposed to be retroactive to May 1st, and he still has not been paid a dime for his care of Jackson.
But he was supposed to be paid. He signed an agreement prepared by AEG, which said AEG would pay him. He signed it.
He did sign it.
So he was going to be paid. The reason they haven't paid since is that obviously he was paid to take care of Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson died in his care. So
isn't a doctor paid if you render services for 2 months? Aren't you paid for those services? If your patient dies and suddenly you don't get paid for the 2 months that you took care of a patient?
Well, that becomes an issue of litigation between Conrad Murray and AEG, I guess. But so what you're saying
assuming that he was you're assuming that he was employed by AEG. I don't think that's been established. I don't think it's a slam dunk case like Tom believes. Well,
all I'm assuming is that I'm not assuming anything. I'm reading an email from one of the bosses of AEG saying we want to remind Murray that it's AEG, not MJ, who is paying his salary. It's pretty clear.
Well, AEG was advancing all pre-production costs. I believe that it was $40 million of pre-production costs were paid at the time Michael Jackson died. Just because they were advancing those costs doesn't mean that AEG was the employer of Conrad Murray.
So when AEG say that they should be reminding Murray it's AEG, not Jackson, who's paying his salary, they didn't know what they were talking about.
Well, for one thing, that email did not come out in trial. Suddenly all these emails appeared that the defense did not have during the trial. And I'm curious why those emails were not produced during discovery in the criminal trial. But in any event...
Well, Tom, I mean, Tom, from a legal point of view, that email is going to be pretty significant, isn't it?
Very significant, because AEG's lawyers drafted an employment agreement. They sent it to Dr. Murray, and Dr. Murray signed it. I don't know if he actually returned it or not. AEG is now saying, well, we never actually signed it, but that's not going to hold up. Under the law, all of this evidence, the agreement they prepared, the fact that Dr. Murray signed it, the emails, the discussions that took place, all of this is going to show there was an employment understanding between Murray and AEG.
Right, but don't you know that in Dr. Murray's statement to the police 2 days after Michael Jackson died, he stated that it was his understanding that he was employed by Michael Jackson, and he subsequently learned that he was to be paid by AEG. So he said, Michael Jackson's my employer, and AEG was going to be paying his salary.
He may have said it, but who prepared the agreement, and who was the agreement with? It was with AEG. In fact, that agreement, as I understand it, required AEG to provide medical equipment to Dr. Murray. And when the agreement terminated, the equipment was supposed to revert back to AEG.
Well, doubtless we will find out more of this as this trial develops. So it's been great talking to you both. A good legal battle there, and there will be more to come in the next few weeks. And please come back and we'll debate it again. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Piers.